The battlefield was silent now, but the silence felt heavy, like a shadow waiting to fall. Broken metal pieces, burned walls, and smoking machines floated slowly inside the damaged space station. Emergency lights flashed red again and again, giving the whole place a strange heartbeat. In the center of a long hallway lay an alien warrior named Rethkar, his body still, his armor cracked, and his breath slow. Rethkar tried to move his arms, but nothing happened. His muscles refused to answer him. His legs were completely numb. He could only lift his head a little, and even that took a painful amount of energy. He tasted metal in his mouth. His vision was blurry. Every time the red light blinked, the world shook in front of his eyes. He knew he was paralyzed. He also knew he had been left behind. A few minutes earlier, his own squad had stood around him. They looked at his broken spine, the deep burns on his chest, and the damaged breathing device attached to his neck. They decided he was too injured to save. They spoke their words of farewell, turned their backs, and walked away. Rethkar remembered the sound of their footsteps fading into the darkness. That sound hurt more than his wounds. Now he was alone. He heard distant explosions from deeper inside the station. The enemy drones were still hunting for survivors. Each explosion echoed through the metal floor and made his body tremble. Rethkar forced himself to stay awake. If he closed his eyes for too long, he felt he might never open them again. His heart beat slowly, like it was tired of fighting. A shadow moved at the far end of the corridor. Rethkar's eyes widened. Was it an enemy machine? Was this how he would die? But the shadow was not a drone. It was a human soldier. The human wore heavy armor with blue lights glowing softly along the edges. His helmet was cracked, and his uniform was covered in dust and burn marks. He walked carefully, checking every corner before taking another step. This soldier had clearly survived many close battles today. His name was Sergeant Daniel Ward. Daniel looked around the hall, searching for other survivors. When he saw the alien lying on the floor, he stopped. For a moment, he did not move. Rethkar stared back, unable to speak clearly. He expected the human to walk away like everyone else. Humans were enemies of Rethkar's people, or at least, that was what his commanders always said. But Daniel did not walk away. He slowly approached the fallen warrior. Rethkar tried to speak. Only a broken whisper escaped his throat. Daniel knelt beside him. His voice was calm, but his eyes were sharp. "You're hurt badly. Can you move?" Rethkar blinked twice, the only answer he could give. Daniel checked his wounds quickly. He saw the crushed armor plates, the burned nerves, the damaged spine. A normal soldier would leave him. Saving a paralyzed alien warrior during an enemy attack was dangerous and almost impossible. But Daniel did not stand up. He kept looking at Rethkar with a strange expression, something between worry and stubbornness. "You were left behind," Daniel said softly. "I can see that." Rethkar felt shame fill his chest. He turned his face away. The floor shook again. This time it was closer. Daniel stood up and looked toward the hallway. Tiny red lights blinked in the distance. Enemy drones. They were coming fast. Daniel had two choices: he could run and save himself, or he could risk everything for a warrior he did not even know. Most soldiers would run. Most soldiers would choose survival. But Daniel Ward was not most soldiers. He took a deep breath and said, "I'm not leaving you here." Rethkar stared at him in shock. Why would a human save him? Why would anyone save him now? Daniel pulled off his backpack and took out a small injector. "This won't heal you," he said, "but it will help you stay awake." He injected Rethkar's arm carefully. The alien felt a warm rush through his body. His vision sharpened a little. The drone's metallic whirring grew louder. Red scanner lights moved across the far wall. Time was running out. Daniel lifted Rethkar's body. It was heavy, extremely heavy. Alien warriors were much larger than humans, their bones thicker, their muscles stronger. Carrying a paralyzed one was almost impossible. Daniel struggled, his breath sharp and painful, but he did not let go. Step by step, he carried Rethkar down the corridor. Behind them, the first enemy drone rounded the corner. Its red eye locked onto them. A high warning beep echoed through the hall. Daniel whispered, "Hold on." He ran. The drones opened fire. Blue sparks exploded on the walls as Daniel dodged left and right, pushing his body to its limits. Rethkar felt every movement, every jolt, every vibration. He wanted to help, but he could not even lift a finger. Daniel slid behind a broken doorframe just as a laser beam struck the floor where they had been seconds earlier. He breathed hard, sweat running down his face. But he kept holding Rethkar tightly, protecting him with his own body. Then the alarm of the station screamed loudly. A fresh wave of drones was activating. Daniel looked down at the alien in his arms. "I saved you," he said, his voice full of determination. "And I'm going to keep you alive." Rethkar closed his eyes, not in weakness, but in something like gratitude. For the first time since he fell, he did not feel alone. And for the first time since the battle began, hope returned, not because of his own people, but because of a single human soldier who refused to walk away. The metal corridor echoed with the sharp sound of laser blasts as Daniel held Rethkar tightly against his chest. The injured alien warrior could feel the human's heart pounding through the armor. It beat fast, hard, and steady, a rhythm of someone who refused to give up. Behind them, the drones rushed forward like a metal storm. Their red sensors glowed brighter every second. They were built to hunt. They were built to kill. And now they were locked onto Daniel. Daniel moved quickly, but carrying Rethkar slowed him down. The alien's heavy body pulled on his arms and back, and every step felt like pushing through thick mud. Sweat dripped down Daniel's forehead, mixing with dust and smoke. His muscles burned, but he kept going. "We need cover," Daniel muttered to himself. Rethkar could not speak, but he understood. His body shook every time Daniel dodged another blast. His armor cracked more with each impact. He could only watch helplessly as the drones closed the distance. Daniel reached a side passage. He kicked the control panel. Sparks flew, and the door scraped open just enough for him to slide inside with Rethkar. The door jammed behind them, but it blocked the drones for now. For a moment, everything went quiet except for Daniel's heavy breathing. Rethkar stared at him. He saw exhaustion on the human's face. He also saw something else, courage. Daniel looked back at him. "You hanging in there?" Rethkar blinked once. "Yes." Daniel checked the hallway ahead. It was long, narrow, and dim. Pipes ran across the ceiling, dripping steam. Warning lights flashed yellow. The space station was dying slowly, piece by piece. "We need to get to the lower decks," Daniel said. "Evac pods are down there." He adjusted his grip on Rethkar and continued moving. As they walked deeper, the station creaked like an old beast taking its final breaths. Sections of the ceiling dropped small bits of metal. Smoke from distant fires filled the air with a bitter smell. Suddenly, they heard a mechanical click. Daniel froze. From the shadows above, a scout drone crawled down the wall like a spider. Its thin red laser scanned the floor. Daniel pressed himself against the wall and held Rethkar close, praying the drone would not detect them. The scout moved slowly, its metal legs tapping lightly on the pipes. Rethkar felt Daniel's heartbeat rise. Daniel whispered, "Don't move." The alien could not move even if he tried. The drone stopped directly over them. Its red light passed across Daniel's helmet. Daniel held his breath. His fingers tightened around Rethkar's armor. Then, a loud boom shook the station. The drone jerked its head toward the noise and scurried away, disappearing into another corridor. Daniel let out a long breath. Close call. He continued forward. Minutes passed. Every step tested Daniel's strength. But then Rethkar tried something. He attempted to move his hand. A small twitch. Then another. Daniel noticed. Hey, you're getting some control back. Rethkar blinked twice. That's good. Really good. Daniel took out a small device from his belt. It was a compact human med tool. He pressed it against Rethkar's neck. A soft blue light spread across the alien's skin. It wasn't a healing device, but it reduced pain and helped damaged nerves respond. Rethkar felt warmth spread through his arms. His fingers twitched again. His breathing deepened a little. They reached a junction with 3 paths. Daniel set Rethkar against the wall for a moment and checked his wrist scanner. The fastest route is through the maintenance tunnels, he said. But they're unstable. He looked at the other 2 paths. One leads toward the engine core. Too dangerous. The other goes near the AI server rooms. Even worse. He looked back at Rethkar. We don't have a choice. Maintenance tunnels it is. He lifted Rethkar again and opened the hatch. A blast of hot air hit them. The tunnel was dark and narrow, filled with hanging wires and broken lights. Small fires burned in corners. Daniel stepped inside. Halfway through, the tunnel shook violently. A massive explosion roared behind them. The shockwave threw Daniel forward. He fell hard, sliding several feet while still holding Rethkar, protecting him from the impact. The tunnel behind them collapsed completely, sealing the way out with heavy debris. Daniel coughed, pushing himself up. Dust filled the air, making it hard to breathe. Rethkar shifted slightly, a sign he was still conscious. Daniel looked at the blocked tunnel. No way back. We're trapped, he whispered. But then he saw something, a faint blue light ahead. Another hatch. Maybe another path. He stood up slowly and tightened his grip on Rethkar. We keep going, he said. I didn't save you to stop now. He moved toward the blue light. Every step echoed in the dark tunnel. Behind them, the metal walls groaned as more parts of the station broke apart. Ahead of them, something waited, something both of them did not yet understand. But Daniel kept walking. And for the first time since he was abandoned, Rethkar felt a spark of hope inside his chest, small but growing, like a weak flame fighting darkness. The human was not giving up. And maybe, just maybe, this human could change everything. The blue light ahead flickered softly, almost like it was calling to them. Daniel stepped closer, holding Rethkar tightly against his chest. The maintenance tunnel behind them was now blocked completely. Dust still floated in the air, making each breath rough and painful. Daniel wiped the sweat from his forehead and said, "We don't stop. Not yet." He reached the hatch with the blue light and pushed it open. The door groaned loudly, and warm air escaped from the other side. Daniel stepped through, and they entered a small control chamber filled with old machines. Half of the screens were shattered. Wires hung like roots from the ceiling. A faint hum filled the room, the sound of dying reactors trying hard to stay alive. Daniel lowered Rethkar onto a flat metal bench. "You're getting heavier," he said with a tired smile. "Or maybe I'm getting slower." Rethkar blinked once, trying to show he understood. Daniel knelt beside him and gently checked the alien's wounds. The med tool's earlier effect was fading. Rethkar could move his fingers a little now, but his legs were still completely dead. His breathing was rough. Pain flickered in his eyes. Daniel whispered, "Just stay awake. You hear me? Stay awake." Rethkar tried to speak. His throat trembled, and a rough sound came out. It wasn't words yet, more like a struggling growl. Daniel looked at him. "You trying to talk?" Rethkar forced another sound. This time it was clearer. Who, man? Daniel leaned closer. Yeah. I'm here. Rethkar's voice cracked. Why, help? Daniel looked away for a moment. He had no easy answer. He didn't know why he chose to stay. He didn't know why he risked his life for an alien warrior he'd never met. Finally, Daniel said softly, because no one deserves to die alone. Rethkar stared at him with wide, glowing eyes. In all the battles he had fought, in all the lessons his people taught him, he never expected such a reason from a human. A deep rumble shook the room, and dust fell from the ceiling. The whole station seemed ready to collapse. Daniel stood up quickly. We need to move soon. But first, I need to know something. He looked at Rethkar. Those drones, they aren't acting normal. They're hunting us like they're following a plan. Why? What do they want? Rethkar's breathing became heavier. He closed his eyes for a moment, gathering strength. Then he opened them slowly and whispered, Me. Daniel froze. What? Why you? Rethkar tried to lift his hand. It shook violently but managed to move a few inches. He placed it over his chest armor. Inside, he whispered. Important, data. Daniel's eyes narrowed. Data? You're carrying something. Rethkar nodded weakly. Daniel felt a cold chill run down his spine. This was more than a rescue. This was something bigger, something dangerous. What kind of data? Daniel asked. Rethkar stared at the ceiling. His voice was low, almost trembling. Truth, my people, fear. Daniel leaned closer. What truth? Rethkar's breathing grew faster, and the machines around them beeped with warning lights. He finally said, a rogue AI, growing, learning, spreading, controlling. Daniel stiffened. The drones, they're part of it. Rethkar blinked once. Yes. They want to stop me, he whispered. If I die, truth dies. Daniel's world suddenly felt heavier. This wasn't just a rescue mission anymore. Rethkar was carrying something that could affect entire galaxies. Information that an enemy AI was trying to erase. Daniel whispered, so your own people left you because you knew the truth. Rethkar's eyes darkened with pain. They fear what it means. Daniel clenched his fists. He hated the idea of someone being abandoned for doing the right thing. More metallic sounds echoed from the hall outside. The AI drones were scanning nearby rooms. Their thin voices carried through the walls. Daniel acted fast. He grabbed Rethkar's arm gently. We need to move. Now. He lifted the alien again. Rethkar groaned in pain but did not resist. They moved out of the control room and into another long corridor. This one was darker, with emergency signs flashing weakly on the walls. Every flicker of red made their shadows stretch long and thin behind them. Suddenly, Rethkar spoke again, this time a little clearer. Who, man? Daniel looked down. Yeah. Rethkar forced his voice forward. You, trust me. Daniel almost laughed softly. I'm carrying you through a burning station full of killer drones. I think that means yes. Rethkar's eyes softened. But before Daniel could take another step, a loud metallic bang echoed. A heavy door at the end of the corridor slammed open, and 3 hunter drones rolled out. Their red eyes locked onto Daniel and Rethkar instantly. Daniel tightened his grip on his weapon. Hold on, he whispered. Rethkar felt his heart drop. The drone's weapons glowed with deadly energy. Daniel whispered again, I'll get you out of this. I promise. Then he ran. The drones fired. Sparks exploded around them. Metal melted on the walls. Daniel dodged left, then right, sliding behind a support pillar. He set Rethkar down for a second and fired back, trying to hit the drone's sensors. Rethkar watched, unable to move, feeling helpless. Daniel shouted, "We need to get to the escape pod bay. It should be close." Rethkar tried to speak again. His voice was barely a whisper. "Danger, there." "I know," Daniel said. "But it's our only chance." The drones moved closer. Their steps echoed coldly across the floor. Daniel lifted Rethkar once more, gritting his teeth. "Let's finish what we started." He ran down the corridor with the drones close behind. And the station around them continued to crumble, as the secret inside Rethkar, the truth he carried, grew heavier with every step. The hallway shook again as Daniel ran with Rethkar in his arms. The hunter drones followed closely, their metal steps echoing like beating war drums. Red lights blinked along the walls as the station warned of more structural damage. Daniel breathed hard, but he didn't slow down. He turned left at the end of the corridor and saw a big sign flickering above a sealed door. "Escape Pod Bay, Sector 7. "We made it," Daniel whispered. But as he stepped closer, the door slid open, not to welcome them, but to reveal a nightmare. Inside the pod bay, dozens of drones waited. Some hovered in the air. Some crawled along the walls. Some stood like guards near the escape pods. Their red eyes glowed in sync, like they all shared one mind. Rethkar's breath caught. The AI knew. It expected them. Daniel whispered, "You weren't kidding, this is a trap." The drones turned their heads slowly toward the humans and alien at the door. Their lasers lit up in bright red lines. Daniel ducked back behind the wall just as a rain of energy blasts tore through the entrance. He pressed Rethkar tightly against his chest, shielding him from the sparks. Rethkar gasped, "Leave me go." Daniel looked down at him sharply. "Not happening." Rethkar's voice trembled. "They want me, not you." Daniel shook his head. "They want you dead. And I won't let that happen." Another wave of blasts hit the wall. The air trembled with heat. Daniel set Rethkar down gently against the wall and checked his rifle. The weapon was almost out of energy. He whispered, "Okay, think. You only get one chance." Rethkar tried again to push himself up, but his legs still refused to move. Only his arms worked slightly now. He reached out and grabbed Daniel's wrist weakly. "You saved me," he said. "But this is death." Daniel squeezed his hand. "Not if I can help it." He took a deep breath and looked at the pod bay again. There were too many drones. Fighting them directly was suicide. But Daniel didn't need to beat them. He only needed to buy time. Just enough for Rethkar to reach a pod. Daniel whispered, "I'll distract them." Rethkar's glowing eyes widened in shock. "No, human, you die." Daniel smiled sadly. "Someone has to stand between you and them. And right now, it's me." Rethkar shook his head weakly. "I don't want this." Daniel adjusted his helmet. "No one wants this. But it's the only way." He leaned close and said quietly, "Your truth can save millions. My life is just one. Yours is hope." Rethkar's throat tightened. He had never heard words like these from a human. Daniel stood up slowly. The drone's scanning beams passed over the doorway. Their machines waited like hungry predators. Daniel whispered, "Stay low. Stay silent. I'll draw their fire. When you see a chance, crawl to a pod." Rethkar wanted to argue, but he had no strength left. He could only watch as Daniel gripped his rifle, took a deep breath, and stepped into the pod bay. The drones reacted instantly. Dozens of red lasers locked onto Daniel. He fired first, hitting a sensor on one drone. It fell crashing to the floor. Then the room exploded into battle. Energy blasts shot across the bay. Daniel dodged behind metal crates, rolled across the floor, and fired again. He moved like a flame, fast, bright, burning with everything he had. Rethkar watched from the doorway, feeling helpless. Daniel yelled, "Come on! Over here!" He fired at another drone. It exploded with a sharp metallic scream. The drones swarmed toward him. Their eyes glowed brighter. Their shots hit the ground around Daniel, sending sparks into the air. One blast struck Daniel's shoulder. He stumbled but kept fighting. Another blast hit his leg. He dropped to one knee but still fired with deadly focus. Rethkar felt a pain in his chest, not from his wounds, but from fear. He whispered, "Daniel, stop." But Daniel kept going. He looked back at Rethkar briefly and shouted, "Move. Now." Rethkar pushed himself forward with his arms. He dragged his heavy body across the floor, inch by inch. Every movement sent waves of pain through him. The nearest escape pod was still far. Daniel saw Rethkar moving. He smiled through the pain and fired a full burst to draw the drones back toward him. The drones hit him again, one blast struck his armor plate, another hit his ribs. Daniel cried out but didn't fall. He shouted through clenched teeth, "Just a little more." Rethkar reached the base of the escape pod. His hands shook violently. His body screamed in agony. He tried to lift himself. But the drones noticed him. 3 of them broke away from Daniel and aimed at Rethkar. Daniel saw it. "No," he yelled. He sprinted forward, ignoring the burning pain in his leg. He threw himself between Rethkar and the drones just as they fired. The shots slammed into Daniel's armor. He dropped to one knee. Rethkar felt something inside him break. He whispered, "Human, no." Daniel gritted his teeth and lifted a small device from his belt, a pulse grenade. He pressed it into Rethkar's hand and whispered, "You can activate it. You're strong enough." Rethkar stared at the device. His weak fingers closed around it. Daniel whispered softly, "Do it, for both of us." Rethkar looked at him with pain and respect. Then he pressed the activation switch. The pulse grenade flashed bright blue. A wave of energy blasted through the pod bay, ripping through the drones. Their sensors burst. Their legs snapped. Their eyes went dark. The room fell silent. Daniel collapsed, breathing hard. His armor smoked. His helmet was cracked. He was alive, but barely. Rethkar crawled closer and whispered, voice shaking, "Daniel, you saved me, again." Daniel looked at him with tired eyes. "Told you. I'm not leaving you." The last of the drones sparked and fell still. The path to the escape pod was open. But both of them were almost out of strength. And the station above them was seconds away from total collapse. Smoke drifted across the destroyed pod bay as Daniel struggled to breathe. His armor was cracked, his helmet broken, and his body weak from burns and impact. Beside him, Rethkar dragged his heavy form toward the escape pod. Every movement felt like tearing open fresh wounds. But the drones were gone. The path was open. And the station around them was falling apart. Sparks rained from the ceiling. The floor trembled. A deep metallic roar echoed through the bay as another section of the station collapsed far away. Daniel forced himself up onto one elbow. "Rethkar, we need to go." Rethkar turned his head toward the human soldier. His glowing eyes were dim but steady. "Together," he whispered. Daniel nodded weakly. "Yeah. Together." Rethkar grabbed the edge of the escape pod's door. His arms shook violently, but he pulled himself inside. He collapsed in one of the seats, breathing hard. Now Daniel only needed to take a few steps to reach the pod. He pushed against the floor, groaning in pain. His legs barely responded. His entire body felt like it was shutting down. Rethkar saw him struggling and reached out his hand. Human. Daniel, come. Daniel tried to smile. I'm coming. But when he reached the foot of the pod, his strength finally collapsed. He fell onto his side, unable to move. Rethkar's heart dropped. He reached out again. Daniel. No, get up. The human didn't answer. His helmet had fallen off, and his face was pale. The station shook again. A deep alarm echoed across the bay. Core failure. Complete collapse in 60 seconds. Rethkar felt panic burn through his chest. He could not move his legs. He could not stand. But he refused to leave Daniel behind, not after everything the human had done. He reached forward and grabbed Daniel's armor. With trembling arms, he pulled with all his strength. But Daniel was too heavy. Rethkar was too weak. And time was running out. Rethkar lowered his head and whispered a desperate plea, please, please, move. Maybe it was the sound of the alien's voice. Maybe it was pure instinct. But Daniel's eyes opened a little. He looked at Rethkar and gave a tired smile. I'm still here. Rethkar's eyes filled with a strange emotion, something humans called hope. Daniel pushed himself again. Inch by inch, he climbed into the pod. Rethkar pulled him as best as he could. After one final struggle, Daniel fell inside and collapsed near the control panel. The pod door slid shut. Rethkar reached out and hit the launch button with the last strength left in his hand. There was a loud mechanical click. A burst of pressure. And then... whoosh! The escape pod shot out of the dying station like a bullet. Fireballs exploded behind them as the station ripped open from the inside. Bright blue flames consumed the metal giant until it finally vanished in a white flash. Inside the pod, Rethkar lay still, breathing heavily. Daniel lay beside him, alive but barely conscious. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Rethkar whispered, "You saved me." Again and again. Daniel let out a weak laugh. Well, someone had to. No, Rethkar said softly. You chose to. Daniel didn't answer, but his tired smile was enough. The pod drifted toward Rethkar's home territory, where his people's ships were already searching the area. When they received the escape pod signal, several large cruisers changed direction and moved toward it. Rethkar knew what happened next would change everything. When the hatch opened, alien soldiers rushed in. They were shocked to see Rethkar alive. They were even more shocked to see a human soldier beside him. Rethkar spoke first, his voice weak but clear. This human saved my life. He saved your future. And he carries no hate. The soldiers looked at Daniel with new eyes. Later, when Rethkar delivered the data, the truth about the rogue AI, his leaders were stunned. They realized the danger was far greater than they imagined. But they also realized something else. A human had risked his life not for glory, not for reward, but for a wounded alien warrior he should have left behind. That act of courage created something new between the two species, an unexpected alliance. Daniel was honored as a hero, not only by humans but by Rethkar's people as well. Many who once called humans simple or weak changed their minds completely. And Rethkar, who once believed he would die alone, stood beside Daniel in every ceremony. In his speech, Rethkar said, "When everyone turned away from me, a single human stepped forward. And because of him, this galaxy still has hope." Daniel smiled at those words. He didn't think he was special. He didn't think he was a hero. He just did what he believed was right. But in that simple act, refusing to walk away, he changed two worlds forever. And the story of the human who saved the abandoned alien warrior became a legend told across the stars. HFY, humanity, at its best.